There we go. Finally, we're in. We're on, I hope. I'm just going to click the button. Hope for the best. Yeah, I think we're there. Awesome. Hello, everybody. How are we? Spain, the final round of our triple header. Canada up next. We're away from the European races. But it is the weekend that we've all been waiting for. It is the weekend of the Flexi Wing saga. Hello, Antonio. How are you doing? Hello, Abar, Avil, Sally's in there as well. Sarah's already here. Hello, hello, hello. Antonio, can't believe I'm putting up with me this long. 34 months. Thank you so much, mate. Goodness me, 34 months. Just reminds me how long this channel's been going more than anything else. Goodness me. It's been going a little while now, hasn't it? But we're slowly making progress. Well, this season's been a little bit of a flop for me so far. Haven't been able to get anywhere near as much out as needed, but we've ticked off some big life goals along the way. We've got a job that is actually going to be secure, so we won't be having to switch that up anytime soon, which has been the first time in a while. I think I've had a different job each year for like the last 3 or 4. Who do I think will win? I mean, if you watch any of the free practices, McLaren looked pretty tasty. They look pretty good for this weekend to the McLaren cars, which is great for me. Means that obviously the Flexi Wing madness hasn't affected them too much. I don't think the Flexi Wing has really messed up anybody too much at all, to be honest. We'll delve into it in a bit more detail momentarily. But I think the general ranking of things is where we expected it to be. Of course, there's a few teams that are having a tough weekend because this track doesn't really suit them. There are a few teams that are having a good weekend because this track does suit them, but I don't think it's too much to do with the fact that the wings have changed that much. But you never know. Am I hyped for the F1 movie? I am, actually. I'm very interested to see how it is, because I just feel like a lot of sports movies, though, they can go one or two ways. You can either do like a documentary style movie. Like I really enjoyed Rush, for instance. Like I really enjoyed Rush. I thought that was very, very good. I watched Gran Turismo actually for the first time this week, just because I had a couple of hours spare and kind of popped it on in the background while I was doing some stuff. I watched Gran Turismo. Thought that was really good. Didn't realize that was based on like real life-ish. But I think when you try and make a sports film that doesn't have any basis in reality, it's not like a docu film or like a real life story turned into a film. It is just an out and out blockbuster. I don't know, it can sometimes be a bit weird. Like I've watched a lot of football films and the football always just looks horrendous. So I'm just hoping that the racing looks good. That's what they need to get right in this film, don't they? That the racing needs to look pretty decent. Haven't watched FP1, 2, or 3 because I was bored. Yeah, there hasn't been too much going on. I think a lot of the teams have been taking it quite easy in Free Practice 1, 2, and 3. I did watch Free Practice 1, or I had it on in the background just because Victor Martin was making his debut in Formula 1. I didn't realize it was the first time we'd seen him in Formula 1 at all. I assumed he would have had a run out with Alpine at some point when he was sort of part of that, but he is not. I wonder if he was like involved in the deal when Colapinto made his way over to Alpine, whether Alpine also kind of offered Victor going in the other direction. Because I really like him. I think he could be good. I kind of had him above Jack Doohan. I know that maybe that was a bit silly. I think Jack Doohan was the better of the two when they were both the Alpine reserve. But I don't know. I just felt like they might give Victor a shout, a go. He's got to go out in a Williams. Probably the worst weekend that you could have a little go out in a Williams, to be honest. But won't blame him too much for that. But yeah, I think hopefully we'll get to see a little bit more of him now that he's the Williams reserve driver. But that was the only reason I watched Free Practice 1. Turn 9 still causing quite a few people some headaches. So keep that one sort of in the view, because I can imagine there's going to be at least somebody go out onto the gravel at turn 9 today. That would be my guess that, like, if there was a red flag or car that goes off, where it would be. That'd be my guess, but there we are. Afternoon all, Downforce Dan. Hello, hello. How are we doing? Samurai in the chat. Shall we delve into it a little bit? Let's get into the Spanish Grand Prix. We've got some predictions. We've got some little bit of chat around the tyres and various bits and pieces to do with that too. And of course, we'll get into the Drivers and Constructors Championship because we are a third of the way through the season. We are 8 races down, 16 to go. It's getting close to that halfway point, isn't it? And still, it's actually pretty tightly compact. And I think there's a few stories that are still massively yet to play out, including the one at the top of it. In fact, let's start with that whilst we're discussing it anyway. We now have 21 drivers, thanks to Colapinto taking part in his first couple of Grand Prix. Hasn't been an amazing couple of Grand Prix from Colapinto. Hasn't yet displaced Jack Doohan from 19th spot, but has managed to get ahead of Gabriel Bortoleto. So Bortoleto down in 21st place. Although the Stakes Sauber car actually looking fairly decent in free practice 3. Whether that was because everyone else was taking it a little bit easy, we'll have to wait and see. But did look pretty good, did the Stakes Sauber car, or at least a little bit better than normal, the Stakes Sauber car, when it came to free practice 3, so keep an eye on him. Nico Hulkenberg with 6 points on the board already, of course. Ollie Behrman, 6 points, but Haas not looking amazing so far this season, to be honest. Or so far this weekend, I wanted to say. To be honest, they've looked pretty good this season so far. Yeah, not looking amazing this weekend. Esteban Ocon saying unlikely to be in the points, unfortunately, for the Haas team, unless things can turn around a little bit more. Waiting for the imminent Alonso win. Alonso still with no points so far this season, so would be interesting if he can manage to get himself to the top step of the podium without having scored any points so far. Has just been insanely unlucky, though, has Fernando Alonso. Like, you can't really say that he's done anything too wrong. I think he has just been incredibly unlucky. And like, that was shown most in Monaco, right? Literally qualified within the top 10 comfortably, was easily going to finish in the point scoring places, and then his car gave up on himself. So nothing he could have done about it. Was absolutely guaranteed points because everyone else behind him was going 5 seconds off the pace. But Fernando Alonso, unfortunately, no points for him. Double points, that though did mean for Williams. So if you're a Williams fan, Spanish fan, maybe the fact that Fernando Alonso hasn't got any points is slightly helped out by the fact that Carlos Sainz managed to get a point last time out in Monaco, pushing him up to 12 and ahead of Yuki Tsunoda still in the championship. Tsunoda still only on 10 points. Yeah, exactly. That's what I mean, though. 3 DNFs for Fernando Alonso. None of them, well, one of them his fault, you could say. Yeah. But very, very unlucky indeed. Although he has said, hopefully, next year, you know, he's getting all the bad luck out of the way. So next year, if he's winning races, no bad luck should come towards him. He should be there and ready and raring to go. I mean, even though he said that, he has been unlucky throughout other years of his career. I think, you know, we're looking at Fernando Alonso. What was he, 5 points off being a 5-time world champion or something like that? He's been pretty unlucky as Fernando Alonso throughout the entirety of his career. Should probably have had more championships and more wins than he has, especially those years he wasted at McLaren. But he is where he is. Next year, Adrian Newey, Aston Martin. Maybe that would be the case. I did start to pivot towards Carlos Sainz, though, and talking about the Williams team. I think Williams are on for a pretty tough weekend. Just don't seem to have the car that suits his kind of track. Carlos Sainz said even before the weekend got started, obviously it being his home Grand Prix, was asked about it, but he was saying, yeah, this kind of track just really doesn't suit our style of car, and therefore unlikely that the Williams team will be able to do very much at all from this weekend's worth of racing in Spain. If they can get one of the two in the points, it's more likely to be Alex Albon, 42 points on the board, still 8th in the Drivers' Championship, and leaving everyone else for dust, really. He's got double the points of Esteban Ocon. Isaac Hadjar is their next in 10th place, nearly a third of the points of Carlos Sainz. Of Alex Albon. He's just absolutely flying. And I was going to say, compared to his teammate, more than 30 points the gap, or 30 points exactly, the gap between those two. Lance Stroll started the season really well, 14 points on the board, but it's just sort of slowly fallen backwards a little bit in the championship as well. According to me, who is the luckiest driver in Formula One history, or just in general? I think in general, this season, who has been lucky this season? I don't know, actually. Maybe, I think everyone's kind of got the points I'd expect them to have. I don't think anyone's been insanely lucky at any point. Lando Norris getting that win with the safety car, maybe. Lance Stroll, yeah, I can. But then Lance Stroll did just have a good start to the season. He was just qualifying quite well. Did pretty well. Stroll has luck. I don't know. I don't think he's too heavily in the luck factor. Be unthinkable at the start of the season. Sainz, Tsunoda, and Alonso. I think Tsunoda's been hard done by, because I think Tsunoda would have more points if he was in the RB. I know that it's kind of been said a couple of times, and oh wait, I forgot to put that light down. I know it's been said a couple of times, like, would the drivers in the RB car actually be, would the drivers in that second Red Bull seat actually be better off in the RB? I think that would be the case. You know, Tsunoda started the season pretty well for RB, qualified inside the top 10 a couple of times, only didn't score points because the team decided to do ridiculous strategy calls in the first two Grand Prix of the season. Like, Australia and China should have probably been points for Yuki Tsunoda, but ended up not being. I think Tsunoda has been pretty hard done by to then be chucked into a Red Bull seat 2 races into the season, having not had any kind of testing time, really, having not had any preseason, and is now being expected to deliver. I think, you know, it's a lot of pressure on Yuki Tsunoda. He's actually not doing terribly. I think the thing is, like, Tsunoda looks okay through free practice 1, through free practice 2, free practice 3. Like, Fridays generally go pretty well for Tsunoda in the Red Bull. Okay, he has a lot of complaints, and you know, he's still half a second or so off Max Verstappen. But in terms of him, like, getting into the car and having a go and getting used to how this Red Bull drives, he generally does okay, does Yuki Tsunoda. It then just gets to qualifying and something really doesn't quite click. I don't know what it is, whether it's the pressure that kind of builds as you go through the weekend, or the fact that everyone else kind of steps up a gear and he just doesn't have that opportunity, or doesn't have it in him yet to be able to step up to that next level. Maybe that's the case, but I just feel bad for Yuki. I just feel bad because I don't think he's doing anything necessarily wrong. But yeah, as you say, just needs to get used to the car, just doesn't quite understand it yet. And everybody who's gone into that second Red Bull seat is just like on a hiding to nothing, really. And that's why Isaac Hadjar has probably been the second fastest Red Bull car this year. I think, well, the points say it. And I think the fact that Hadjar has been able to deliver so consistently, I think it just goes to prove the point, doesn't it? That RB car has just a much wider window of being able to work, and the drivers can go in there and they have more opportunity to make it their own. They can drive to their style a little bit more inside of the RB, whereas going into the Red Bull, you have to drive it the way that the Red Bull car wants to be driven, right? You have no leeway of any kind inside of that Red Bull, whereas you do seem to have quite a lot of leeway in the RB. So it's basically as soon as the driver steps up, and I think that's the problem they've got with that second team. You know, as much as you can say it's a luxury having that second team because you can put 4 drivers on the grid, you're not actually preparing them for the Red Bull, putting them inside of the RB. I just don't think that the 2 cars are anywhere close to one another in terms of how they're set up and how they work. So yes, you're preparing them in terms of, oh, okay, getting used to going to a race weekend and the ideas behind the scenes that you have to be able to deliver this kind of feedback and understand this kind of setup and et cetera, et cetera. But I think in terms of the actual driving, in terms of the actual performance inside of the car, the RB does not help prepare them for Red Bull. And then we're just seeing that over and over and over again. Like the only driver who's actually been fairly decent in that second Red Bull seat didn't come from RB. They came from Force India, or what was it, Racing Point at the time, in Sergio Perez. And that only lasted a little while. As soon as the car got more tricky to drive, Perez's pace just slowly fell away. But you look at Albon, you look at Gasly, you look at Lawson at the beginning of the season, you look at Tsunoda now. All 4 of those drivers have been good. All 4 of those drivers have proven their quality. You look at how good Albon is now. You look at how good Gasly is now. Like, they are really, really good drivers. But all of them, having come through the second Red Bull program, were not good enough for the main Red Bull team. Because I don't think that RB car, that second Red Bull car, is actually a realistic stepping stone to go into the main team. I just don't think it is. And that's what they've got. They've got that problem there, basically. I know Max Verstappen also came through the second team, but Max Verstappen's a phenom. Max Verstappen just absolutely loves racing anything and everything that he possibly can, and makes... He could go around Tesco's and make his shopping cart look quick. Like, he's just ridiculous as Max Verstappen. I don't think you can base Red Bull drivers off of Max Verstappen, unfortunately. But that's my kind of issue I have with the Red Bull hierarchy and the Red Bull setup. But we're making our way up the grid before we started talking about that. Antonelli, 7th fastest at the moment. I think that's good enough for Kimi Antonelli, to be honest. No, Albon is only 6 points off of him, which could maybe be a little bit of a nightmare. I don't think you want to finish behind a Williams, even in your rookie season. And even though Antonelli has shown that he's very talented, I do think that he does need to finish in that top group to really prove his place. And therefore, I don't think he'll ever want to sit behind Albon or, you know, be close to finishing behind Albon for the end of the season. So I do think we need a couple of good performances from Kimi Antonelli. It sort of slowed down a little bit over the last couple of weekends, hasn't it? So nice return to form from Kimi Antonelli would be good. Struggle that he's got is the Mercedes car is not looking incredible at this point, and I think the wing changes, if there's one team that is affected a little bit more, maybe it's Mercedes, although maybe it is just the fact that it's not a good track for the Mercedes setup. Lewis Hamilton and Charles Leclerc in 5th and 6th. Just, I think, and I was looking at this the other day, actually. I was looking at the eight races into the season, and Hamilton does have like 20 more points than he had last year, which I think has gone under the radar a little bit. I know last year was also a pretty horrible season for Lewis Hamilton in his final year with Mercedes, but he has actually done better than he did last year, and he was disqualified from the Chinese Grand Prix. So I do think we're being a little bit harsh on Lewis Hamilton, to be honest. I think the expectation was so high that actually whatever Lewis Hamilton did, he was always going to be just a little bit off the pace. No? Nah? Okay. Maybe I'm wrong. Antonelli, future champion. I mean, yeah, why not? He's doing incredibly well, and he's in the right kind of seat, you know? Mercedes looking pretty good for next season and the 2026 regulations and beyond, because everyone wants a Mercedes engine, and that's usually a good sign that engine's going to be pretty good. Ferrari's strategy is first-class entertainment. That's the other thing. Like, Lewis Hamilton's still got a lot to adapt to. I think we're being a little bit harsh on Lewis. Just a little bit harsh. I don't think, at any point, I still don't think he'll ever beat Charles Leclerc in the Ferrari, if I'm honest. I think if the Ferrari comes out next year and is championship worthy, my money would be on Charles Leclerc. But I think we're being a little bit harsh on Hamilton in terms of the points that he's scored so far this year. I think he's actually done okay. Just the expectation was that the Ferrari was going to be a championship-worthy car. And Charles Leclerc has proven that the Ferrari is not a championship-worthy car because he's on 79 points to Hamilton's 63. And that's only a 16-point swing. And Hamilton could quite easily get 16 points somewhere along the line if Charles Leclerc has a DNF or something like that. So might be a better car next year for Ferrari. I do think, unfortunately, they are out of the running for the championship now. I also think George Russell, after that 0 points in Monaco, is out of the running. Feels really harsh on George because, again, it was a mechanical failure in qualifying that actually cost him. Had that mechanical failure not happened in qualifying in Monaco, he would probably still be a lot closer to the top drivers at this point. But yeah, it's being, 70 points or near enough, 68 points off Oscar Piastri, a third of the way through the season. I think it's done and dusted for George. I think a 4th place finish in the championship would be respectable, though. Respectable indeed. Comment on Bortoletto. I love it. I think he's Formula 2 champion, Formula 3 champion. Great signing for Stake Sauber. I think he knows, and I think they know that they're just waiting for next year and the Audi project to come in. Until that point, it's going to be tough for him to really do anything that spectacular inside of that car. Then creeping up, Max Verstappen. Is Max Verstappen still in the championship fight? 25 points off of Oscar Piastri. Can he overturn an entire victory's worth of points? If anyone can, Max Verstappen can, surely, right? 25 points, still 16 races to go in the season. Red Bull still looking very 50-50 car, but it is made for Max Verstappen. He is the conqueror of that Red Bull and just seems to be able to find performance when he needs it. And therefore, even though, 25 points does feel like a comeback, does feel like, he is the hunter rather than the hunted this time around. If there's one driver you just don't want to see in your wing mirrors, it's Max Verstappen, isn't it? Max even said McLaren has the better car. Oh, yeah. McLaren definitely has the better car. Undoubtedly has the better car this season. But that doesn't mean Max Verstappen's out of it. And we've seen champions win... we've seen people win championships without having the best car on the grid. And I just think Max has all the pieces of the recipe. Obviously, 2026, Red Bull's not looking amazing for the 2026 regulations. Max Verstappen has a contract until 2028. We've already seen him, though. We saw him in a GT3 car the other week. He loves his sim racing. He wants to try other stuff. If he won this championship, would he just call it a day? Maybe. I don't think there's anything better he could do. He'd have won a championship in every possible imaginative way, right? He'd have won a championship against Lewis Hamilton in 2021. Okay, it was a little bit controversial, but he still had to deliver every single weekend, and Max was still phenomenal throughout that season. So fair play to him, got that championship done. He's won a championship when he had to sort of battle against his teammate. It was him versus Sergio Perez for the beginning of the season, and which of the two would come out on top. Charles Leclerc was in the mix in 2022 as well. Came out on top of that, delivered. 2023, the most dominant win in championship history. So he's won that kind of championship as well. So he's shown he can go all the way down to the wire. He's shown that he can completely and utterly obliterate the field. And then he's shown that he can sort of coast a car home from a position of dominance, right? Last year, the McLaren car did overtake the Red Bull about halfway through the season, but he got enough done early on and then was able to completely shut out everybody else from the possibility of winning the championship. As soon as Lando Norris got talked about as a possible championship contender, Max Verstappen then shut the door on that. And every time he was on the same piece of track as Lando Norris, he made sure Lando Norris had a really tough afternoon. So Max has just won championships in every possible fashion why would he not be able to win a championship from being in the second fastest car and being 25 points off the championship lead? Like, I just think he's got it all in his locker, right? Of course, it would kind of feasibly be a McLaren fumble if they didn't win this championship, but Max Verstappen's the one that I'd want to be there. If I was Red Bull and, well, if I was any other team chasing the top two, I think if you could pick any driver on the grid right now, you'd pick Max Verstappen. And then the top two, Lando Norris now got himself within 3 points of the championship lead once again. It's very tight indeed at the top for the two McLarens. I think a couple of races off for Oscar Piastri. Lando Norris delivering that win in Monaco, performing well and getting the overtake in Imola. I think has just been able to close that gap really well over the last few weekends as Lando Norris and chipped away at those points. Oscar Piastri from a position of quite comfortable. I was going to say not too comfortable, but it was like an okay in terms of the in terms of Oscar getting their championship kind of sewed up fairly early. Lando has just found his groove again inside of that McLaren, and now looks like anybody's championship. Could easily be a 3-point swing. We could easily see Lando Norris at the top of the championship once again, although Oscar Piastri has looked the quicker of the two so far over the course of today. We'll have to see how this qualifying goes. And then tomorrow, in terms of strategy as well, it's going to be very open indeed. But we have rambled on a little bit there. Apologies. So let's jump straight to the qualifying board. And waiting for some information to come through. The track is clear. Drivers are in the cars as well. So the radios are going to, as I say, it just comes through. There you go. There's Lance Stroll on the radio. Do I use multi-viewer? I do indeed. This is multi-viewer. There's no track limits infringements as of yet. No investigations to be played out. But 18 minutes of track time ahead of us. Franco Colapinto has already made his way out into the pit lane. The driver's just waiting for the green light. I'm going to drop this light just very quickly because it's annoying me. It's not at the right height. There we are. It is very hot though on the Spanish track right now. As you can see at the top of your screens, all that I can't because I've just covered it up, is 29 degrees in Spain, 48.2 degrees Celsius track temperature. So it's going to be very hot indeed. Doesn't bode well for the Mercedes cars, of course. Last year they were much better in the cooler conditions, but let's have to wait and see. Green light is on. Pit lane is open. Franco Colapinto, as I mentioned before, the first driver out on track. Ocon, Behrman and Stroll following suit. Looking for those 5 drivers to drop out in this first session. And if you could be so kind as to maybe hit the like button, hit subscribe as well if you're new to the channel, that'd be absolutely amazing. More content coming your way very, very soon because we finally have a little bit of serenity ahead of us for the future. We're locked in. We're ready to go. Alex Albon out on track as well for the Williams. Has said it hasn't been an amazing weekend so far. Hello, Josh. How's it going? Who do I think is getting pole? It's got to be one of the McLarens at the moment. Just going off the free practice pace. Oscar Piastri was very swift at the beginning of, or today in the free practice 3 session, but Lando Norris was also quick yesterday. Does feel like the McLaren is still the dominant car. And here comes Franco Colapinto then to start a flying lap inside of the Alpine. Let's keep an eye on his lap times as they come through. Just going down towards turn 1 now, Franco Colapinto. Esteban Ocon following. Ollie Behrman is going to be the 3rd driver across the start-finish line. Everybody else is just waiting in the garage by those things. 5 cars out on track, 15 cars still in the garages, even as we hit the couple of minutes into this session. Maybe Ferrari just needed Spain. It's not been an amazing Friday and start to Saturday for the Ferrari team. Lewis Hamilton was not overly happy with the balance of the car at the end of Friday. Looked a little bit more comfortable this morning. Not a ridiculous amount, but a little bit. Still think, Q3 should be fairly comfortable for them, but I don't think they're going to be right in the mix for pole position as maybe like Charles Leclerc was last time around in Monaco. Strong second place finish for Charles Leclerc. 5th place finish for Lewis Hamilton as well, which was really good sign for Ferrari, especially when they had the 2 Mercedes also falling outside of the points last time out. Colapinto is quicker than Ocon of the 2. Ocon a 1:14.0. Ollie Behrman a 1:14.3. Here comes Lance Stroll. And Alex Albon has been quickest of anybody in the first sector. Lance Stroll quickest in the final sector. A 1:13.6 from Lance Stroll. 22.366 in that final sector. Here comes Alex Albon, though, in the Williams. And can only go second fastest, despite having the fastest first and third sectors. Still 0.5 tenth of a second off the pace of Lance Stroll is Alex Albon. Still no movement inside of the garages for the other 15 drivers. Carlos Sainz in the other Williams. Fernando Alonso in the other Aston Martin. Pierre Gasly in the other Alpine. Sort of seems strange for those teams to send out one of their drivers but not the other. But 5 drivers are out. 15 drivers still in the pits. Albon has just finished his flying lap. And here comes Yuki Tsunoda to finally get in and amongst it as Franco Colapinto has gone out, done his lap and come back in. We're now seeing some cars actually leaving the garage as he's coming back in. And it's a foray of cars leaving the garage now. Hulkenberg managed to actually jump the queue ahead of Tsunoda there, even though Tsunoda got out of his garage first. Tsunoda and Lawson lining up. Bortoleto. Oh, Bortoleto got ahead of Tsunoda as well. Didn't see that. But Bortoleto is out ahead of Yuki. The Ferrari's also now joining the queue in the pit lane. As I say, Franco Colapinto and those 5 drivers, Ocon, Behrman, Stroll, and Albon, now making their way back into the pits. Now we get to see, Fernando Alonso looking to his right, back in towards the garages. Max Verstappen deciding to still not get involved in this. Max Verstappen. I feel like the Spanish Grand Prix always feels like a very Max Verstappen type of track. I don't know whether it's just because he's won here a good couple of times or a good few times, but it just feels like these are the kind of tracks where Max Verstappen would like take a step up as the season progressed. We get towards the Spanish Grand Prix and then he just turned the screw a little bit. As we talked about before, though, not leading the championship at the moment. Has 25 points to make up, but just feels like this is the kind of point of the season where if he does need to step it up a little bit, he'll be able to do it. Nico Hulkenberg has started his flying lap, so has Gabriel Bortoleto. But I'm having a little look here at Yuki Tsunoda. I want to keep an eye on the Japanese driver's lap times as he comes around to start his first flying lap of the Saturday qualifying session. Down to turn 1 he goes. Keep an eye on his sector times as they come through. Nico Hulkenberg is at the front of this pack and is starting to make his way through a little bit of traffic. George Russell's Mercedes has to move out of the way of the German driver, of course, becoming part of the Audi German team next year. Kimi Antonelli starting his flying lap as Lewis Hamilton ahead of him in the Ferrari. is coming out of the pits. So is Charles Leclerc. In fact, Franco Colapinto, I think even Ocon and Behrman are coming back out again, and we still have no sign of Max Verstappen as of yet. Piastri is out, Norris is out, Leclerc is out on track. Kimi Antonelli has just gone quickest of anybody in the first sector. Very nice indeed, although Lando Norris just goes a little bit quicker again. Lando Norris's first sector time looking very swift indeed. Would be surprised if Norris doesn't go to the top of the timing sheets here. But Nico Hülkenberg has gone 0.2 quicker than Lance Stroll. Here comes Liam Lawson. Oh, 0.02 of a second quicker. Antonelli has now set another purple sector, only to be displaced by Lando Norris once more. So Antonelli was quickest in the first and second sectors until Lando Norris took that spot. Lando Norris purple in sector 1 and sector 2. Antonelli does go quickest by 1/10 of a second, but Lando Norris is now coming around, is going to take that position from him straight away, and does by 5.5 of a second. Here comes George Russell, Kimi Antonelli's teammate as well, just coming through the final sector as Russell round 13 through 14 he comes, and then crosses the line to go second fastest by 0.07 of a second. Oscar Piastri is just gone quicker than his teammate through that middle sector. It is 100ths of a second between the two McLarens at that point in the racetrack. Lando Norris, though, has completed his lap. Still a third of the lap to go for Piastri. Comes around the final couple of corners. Let's see what this third sector time is like. And it is good enough to go 2.5 quicker than Lando Norris. A sublime final sector from Piastri. You can see there at the bottom of the screen, only bettered by George Russell's final sector time. But it is Norris, Piastri, Piastri, Norris in terms of sector 1 and sector 2 fastest times so far. George Russell quickest in the final sector of anybody. Here comes Fernando Alonso, his home Grand Prix. The last Grand Prix he won, of course, the Spanish Grand Prix. But he only goes at 5th fastest for the Aston Martin team for now. Leclerc and Hamilton, the two drivers were waiting. Hamilton goes 6th fastest. Here comes Charles Leclerc around the final couple of corners. And it is Max Verstappen, the only driver that won't have set a lap time, as Leclerc goes 4th fastest and puts Yuki Tsunoda down into 15th place. Colapinto, Bortoleto, Ocon and Behrman then down in that bottom 5. Oh, and there goes Yuki Tsunoda as Colapinto improves his lap time. Up into 9th spot goes the Argentine, and there Yuki Tsunoda's Red Bull is dropped into the bottom 5. Max Verstappen just come through the middle sector. It was a quick middle sector from Max Verstappen as well. 4th fastest of anybody so far this weekend. Verstappen continuing to just wring the neck of that Red Bull whenever he gets the opportunity to do so, and should put himself into that top 5 fairly comfortably. It's even better than that. He's into the 2nd place spot. 2.5, 1,000th of a second quicker than Lando Norris, which does drop Nico Hülkenberg into that bottom 5. So it is Hülkenberg, Ocon, Sainz, Tsunoda, and Bortoleto, the 5 drivers that are down there, with a third of the time left to go. 6 minutes on the clock. Well, 6.5 minutes on the clock for this first qualifying session that we have. Piastri topping the timing sheet so far with a 1:12.551. Max Verstappen 2nd fastest, just 2.5 off the pace of the Australian. But it is all about that bottom 5 at the moment. They're the 5 that will not make it through to the second part of qualifying. And this is also where we get to see which of the drivers at the top have enough faith in their lap time. I think Oscar Piastri is pretty much guaranteed to be safe with that time. But who else will stick it out And who else will come back out for another run in this first qualifying session? Charles Leclerc called to the weighbridge on the way into the pits. And here we go then. Charles Leclerc jumping in, getting his car back into the garage. Thank you very much to all the new subscribers. Massively appreciate that. Stroll down to 14th already. He went early, did Lance Stroll. And track rubbers in. The drivers get their eye in. And the lap times do continue to fall as you go through qualifying. Lando Norris coming out. Norris going for it again. I think it is a scrubbed set of tyres, though, on Lando Norris's car. Of course, only 5 sets of soft compound tyres available to the teams. Need to use them all the way across Q1, Q2, and Q3. So it is a scrubbed set of softs by the looks of things on Lando Norris's car. Hulkenberg back out. Bortoleto back out. Disappointing to see both of them in the bottom 5 after what felt like a pretty solid free practice 3 session. Williams is trying to muscle their way into the queue in the pit lane. Norris and Piastri not hanging about, though. Antonelli also out for Mercedes. Isaac Hadjar has come out for the RB car as well. Gasly just coming down towards turn 1. Colapinto on the radio. Oh, looks like he might have a problem, and Colapinto can't get moving at the front of the queue. Has a problem. Carlos Sainz has made his way past because his Williams garage is right next to where Franco Colapinto has come to a stop, but everybody else in the queue is struggling. Lewis Hamilton is trying to make his way past Franco Colapinto, and here, there you go, he's just been able to move the car forward enough as Franco Colapinto to be able to let everybody out who was in the queue behind. I'm not sure if Franco Colapinto is going to be safe with that kind of time. Only 11 fastest, 113.3 on the board from him. Exactly the same time as Kimi Antonelli's Mercedes, actually, in 12th spot. But the cars are able to make their way past now. Gabriel Bortoleto is improving. Needs about 3.5 tenths of a second to get up into the top 15 and outside of that bottom drop zone. He's going well in that first sector is the Brazilian. Yuki Tsunoda also down there. P19 needs to get out on track fairly swiftly. Does Yuki Tsunoda? Still not out. And less than a couple of minutes to go. Tsunoda is going to have to really get a wiggle on here because Charles Leclerc has come out in front of him. Tsunoda is now out on track. But this is going to be really awkward for the Red Bull car. Lando Norris has completed his lap. Antonelli has gone quickest of anybody again in that middle sector. Antonelli really flying with it. Franco Colapinto has not been able to get out of the pit lane. So Colapinto is going to be out. 13 fastest at the moment, but I think will be done. Yuki Tsunoda might be in a bit of trouble here as well. Only a minute to go, and he's only at turn 5. Carlos Sainz is going and improving in that first sector is Carlos Sainz. Lance Stroll has just dropped down into that bottom 5 as both of the Stakes Sauber cars do improve their times. Bortoleto up to 8th fastest. Means it is Stroll, Lawson, Ocon, and Tsunoda. Ocon is on an out lap. Tsunoda also. Lawson, I think, is on a flying lap right now. So is Carlos Sainz that we are on board with on my screen. Carlos Sainz improves again through the middle sector. Colapinto is now the man on the bubble, but is not out on track. So Franco Colapinto surely here is going to drop out in that bottom 5. He does, as Carlos Sainz goes up to 13th fastest, puts Lewis Hamilton and Ollie Behrman, the 2 drivers closest to the bottom 5. Here comes Liam Lawson, who is improving again on his time through Sector 2. Lawson's time is getting better. Ocon and Tsunoda, where is Tsunoda? Is on a flying lap, Tsunoda, but only just got there. The checkered flag has now dropped as Liam Lawson comes past it. 7th fastest for him. Franco Colapinto is out of his Alpine car. Managed to get it down the pit lane, but that's going to be the end of his afternoon. Ollie Behrman now 16th fastest. Carlos Sainz on the bubble. Hamilton has improved his time up into 10th. Hülkenberg has completed his time as in 14th. Here comes Esteban Ocon. It's good enough. It's going to drop Carlos Sainz into that bottom 5. Carlos Sainz's home Grand Prix starts with him dropping out in that bottom 5. Can Ollie Behrman put his teammate in there? Yes. Behrman comes across the line, goes 11th fastest. So that puts Esteban Ocon, his teammate, down into that bottom 5. Colapinto is there as well. Yuki Tsunoda and Lance Stroll then have both come through the middle sectors and are improving their times. It is Hülkenberg and Hadjar that are at risk. Here comes Yuki Tsunoda. It's only 19th fastest. And Tsunoda is the slowest of anybody out on track. Lance Stroll comes across the line to go 7th fastest. That was Nico Hülkenberg down into the bottom 5. So it is Hülkenberg, Ocon, Sainz, Colapinto, and Yuki Tsunoda who drops out in that bottom 5. Goodness me. It was an absolute debacle for Yuki Tsunoda. I imagine it would have been his tyres not quite in the right window because he came out in a real mix of cars, did Tsunoda. But dead last, 20th place, worse than Franco Colapinto, who didn't manage to set a final flying lap time. Ouch. That is not what Yuki Tsunoda needed. And again, it's just Tsunoda hasn't been that slow through the free practice sessions. Okay, don't get me wrong. He hasn't been ridiculously quick or anything like that, but hasn't been insanely slow. Now we get to this and just doesn't have it, does Yuki Tsunoda? There's just something missing from the tank. Wow. Hülkenberg, Ocon, Sainz, Colapinto, and Tsunoda. Tsunoda is so washed after being at the sister Red Bull team for 4 years. Perez looking at home. Yeah, Perez will be just sitting somewhere very smug, I think, with how well he actually managed to do inside of that second Red Bull seat compared to the rest of the cars, or the rest of the drivers, sorry, that have been put in there in recent years. I would like to see the onboard, though, because he definitely got caught up in the kind of chaos of Franco Colapinto trying to leave the pits, then having to duck out of the way. Charles Leclerc also got caught up in that as well, although Charles Leclerc setting the 6th fastest lap time, 4.5 tenths off the fastest time from Piastri. So not like that affected Charles Leclerc too much. But there we are. Oscar Piastri, quickest of anybody in that first session then. A 1:12.5, more than good enough to see him top the timing sheets by 2.5 tenths of a second to Max Verstappen, who just always seems to be able to turn up, doesn't he? Max Verstappen's always right there when he needs to be. Lando Norris was the 3rd fastest driver, and then the 2 Mercedes cars shuffled into 4th and 5th place just behind. So very decent from the 2 Mercedes as well. Leclerc, Stroll, Lawson, Albon, and Bortoleto would have done good enough had that been Q2 to get themselves into the top 10 and into the final part of qualifying. But we still have one more session before pole will be decided. We head into Q2 without Nico Hülkenberg, Esteban Ocon, Carlos Sainz, Franco Colapinto, and Yuki Tsunoda. We are just waiting as well for for Colapinto's car to be shuffled out of the way at the end of the pit lane. Be interesting to see what the Alpine team have to say about that, because frustrating for Franco Colapinto, if nothing else, and a shame that he won't be taking part in any more of the sessions today. Some kind of technical problem inside of that Alpine as he was at the front of the queue. Everybody then having to run around him. And Carlos Sainz accepts that it is not good. His worst ever starting position for a Spanish Grand Prix. And just did not look comfortable, did Carlos Sainz. Ollie Behrman, very happy indeed. Esteban Ocon, his teammate, dropping out in 17th place. And didn't quite hear fully what Yuki Tsunoda said there. I think just frustrated more than anything else. And Albon, why are we going so early, says Alex Albon, as they are already in the pit lane and ready to go. Let's have a little look. Possibly a little bit of damage to Yuki Tsunoda's floor. Ooh. Went round turn 14 and got a whole chunk. Maybe he was carrying a little bit of damage to the underfloor of that Red Bull. I think for Yuki Tsunoda's sort of life and hopes, I think he, he's just nowhere. Watching the onboards of Yuki Tsunoda, there's just no grip whatsoever for the Japanese driver, just really struggling with it. Yuki performed better in the RB. Oh, massively so, yeah. I think the RB car is a much nicer car to drive. Obviously, the ceiling of the RB car is a lot lower. The Red Bull car is quicker, but the Red Bull car is only quicker if you can get the performance out of it, and Tsunoda just can't get any performance out of it, unfortunately. As Alex Albon and I think Fernando Alonso already going for a little bit of a race as they start this Q2 session. Fernando wanted to be first in the queue by the looks of things, so overtakes Alex Albon. Fernando Alonso is going to be the first driver to set a flying lap time here then. Ollie Behrman just coming around turn 1. And they are the 3 cars out on track. Hello, not pro gamer. Lights out and away we go, to an extent. What happened to Yuki? They're looking at whether or not there was maybe a little bit of damage to that Red Bull car, because he did get a lot of curb on the way out of turn 14 on one of his warm-up laps. But, I mean, that is just really hoping and praying that there is something wrong with that Red Bull, because if there wasn't any damage to that Red Bull, Tsunoda was just the slowest of the drivers out there. So, for Yuki Tsunoda's sake, let's hope that there was a little bit of damage to the floor of that Red Bull as Fernando Alonso now peels into the pits. Bit of a weird one from Fernando Alonso there. Sort of raced Alex Albon to be the first driver out on track and then came straight in once again. I think was on a used set of tyres. So that, I'm not sure. Fernando Alonso doing things unexpected. Alex Albon is going to be the first driver to set a flying lap time then. And Behrman, the only other driver out there. A flying lap is the same as a hot lap or push lap? Yes, very true. Alex Albon. Lovely little middle sector that we're watching on board with him. Max Verstappen is now going to make his way to the end of the pit lane. Lance Stroll also coming up behind him as well. Seems to be no driver confident enough for that second Red Bull seat. I think the car is really hard to drive. The window of performance is very, very narrow. And then, as you say, you just get the pressure piling on top of you. Ollie Behrman not looking quite as quick as Alex Albon on his flying lap. Crosses the start-finish line, is 5.5 tenths off of it. Albon, though, the only other driver to have completed a lap. Everybody else coming out now. We've got Verstappen, Stroll, Lawson, Bortoletto, Gasly, Hadjar. Now Lando Norris also coming out for their first lap in this Q2 session. Isaac Hadjar to Red Bull. Here we go. dear. I think Isaac Hadjar would just say no. Just having a really good season as Isaac Hadjar. Doesn't need that stress. Here we are then. Verstappen watching his onboard. Verstappen looking to be a 1:13.1. Should be fairly comfortable considering his lap times in the first qualifying session, but doesn't seem incredibly quick through the first and second sectors. You look at the sector leaderboards for them. Max Verstappen only appearing in that final sector 3 leaderboard. He was second fastest in that final sector behind George Russell. But Max Verstappen just doing enough across all of the sectors to still be within chatting distance to a possible pole position. But when is he not? Verstappen 4 tenths of a second up on Alex Albon's time as he comes through the middle sector. Gabriel Bortoletto has just gone fastest of anybody through the first sector. Lance Stroll, couple of tenths behind Bortoletto's time. So's Liam Lawson, who's also on a fast lap. Pierre Gasly in the 121.6s. The 21.6s for that first sector as well. Gabriel Bortoletto, though, 2 tenths of a second off Max Verstappen's now first place time with a 12.3 from Max Verstappen. Lando Norris has just gone a tenth of a second quicker than Verstappen in that first sector, though. And again, you can see Norris topping the timing sheet so far for that first sector. Verstappen was quick in the second and third sectors, though. Everybody is improving on those Q1 times. Verstappen still top. Bortoletto has gone second fastest, but 7 tenths off the pace of the Red Bull. Here comes Pierre Gasly to split the times a little bit better. Only 2.5 tenths off Verstappen's top time right now and ahead of Gabriel Bortoletto. He jumps up into second place. Isaac Hadjar also fills that gap to go third fastest in his RB car. Lando Norris is quickest in the middle sector of anyone so far, although Lewis Hamilton has just gone quicker than him through the first sector. So here comes Lando Norris. It is going to be 3 tenths of a second quicker than Verstappen. A 1:12.0 from Lando Norris. Fernando Alonso just coming around the final sector. So is Charles Leclerc. Fernando Alonso goes quicker than the Alpine and up into third spot. Charles Leclerc 14th fastest at the moment, but yet to set a lap time. So good first and second sectors from the Ferrari. Needs to get himself up into that top 5. Does. Gets himself top 3 with a 1:12.495. Charles Leclerc, third fastest in his Ferrari today so far. Here comes Lewis Hamilton to displace his teammate by just a few hundredths of a second. So Hamilton a 1:12.4. Piastri is coming across the line. Oh, and Piastri just kind of snuck up to the top of the timing sheets there. And the first driver into the 111s. Piastri quickest in the first sector of anybody, but sneaky kind of pretty good middle and final sectors for the McLaren car. Gets him to the top of the timing sheets. Here comes George Russell. 0.4 of a second adrift. And fourth fastest at the moment. Piastri into the 111s is very swift indeed. So it's Bortoleto, Lawson, Albon, Stroll, and Behrman, the slowest drivers at the moment. That would mean Alonso, Gasly, and Hadjar would be those middle group that would make it through into the top 10. Tsunoda opening a door for another one of those midfield drivers to get themselves up into the point scoring places to begin with tomorrow. Oh, thank you so much for the super chat. Who can handle an RB car specially made for Max, who loves high front end, even if it compromises the back end? Ricardo, Albon, Perez, Lawson, all perished. Tsunoda remains. Missed Gasly in there as well. Gasly was there. But yeah, I know exactly what you mean. It is just going to show that Red Bull car just seems incredibly, incredibly difficult. And I kind of said this before we got started. I just don't think the second Red Bull team actually sets up the drivers for what they're going into in a Red Bull car. I think the RB car or the AlphaTauri or however you saw it, the second Red Bull team, their car that they produce is never actually that similar to the car that they end up driving at Red Bull. And because there's such a gap between the RB and the Red Bull, and actually I think because the RB is such a nice car to drive, it makes those drivers look really good, you know? It has made Lawson looked brilliant in that RB. Tsunoda looked brilliant in that RB. Hadjar looks brilliant in that RB so far this season. Like the RB, because it's such a nice car to drive, and because you are in that midfield battle a lot of the time, where you can have weekends that you just shine because the RB is just the best of the midfield cars sometimes, it does make you look good. You know, that RB car makes those drivers look good. But the RB car is nothing like the Red Bull car. So you're going from this lovely car, really nice to drive, makes you feel confident, gives you the grip where you want it to, adapts to your style of driving, and you're going from that into the main team where you go from really lovely car to absolutely horrendous, can only be driven one way. You have to adapt to the car cannot adapt to you. Impossible to handle in certain conditions unless you already know how, but you've got no experience because you've never driven it before. It is a really tough jump for those drivers to have to make. And I think there's more expectation on them. You know, you look at Kimi Antonelli, for instance. I think if Mercedes had given Kimi Antonelli a couple of years at Williams or something like that, all it does is actually increase the pressure on you. So by the fact that Red Bull do have this second team, and by the fact that Red Bull can put drivers into that second team, I think it just puts more pressure on them to perform as soon as they get into the car, because you're like, well, they're not learning about Formula One. They have Formula One experience, so they should be able to deliver straight off the bat. So it's increasing the pressure. Whereas, as I say, like Bortoleto or Antonelli, those kind of drivers, or even Oscar Piastri when he went to McLaren, there was kind of no pressure for the first 10, 15 races because they were brand new to the sport. So, I don't know. My new YouTube hero. Thanks, Paul. Appreciate it. Get a job, you freak. I do have a job, don't worry. This is not my job. It's just something I love doing, something I'm passionate about. So I have got a job, and I recently got it. So thank you. What kind of second RB seat curse did Yuki suffer from this time? Possible damage to the floor of that Red Bull. For Yuki Tsunoda's sake, I really hope there is damage to that floor. But we'll have to wait and see. However, we do have cars back out on track once again. We've got Lance Stroll who is at the lead of this group. Antonelli, Gasly, Albon, Bortoleto, and Hadjar all ready to go as well. So the interviews went well? Yes, they did indeed. We have confirmed job. Starts in August, so it's a little bit of a weird time, but there we are. So Piastri, Norris, Verstappen, Russell, Hamilton, and Leclerc are still in the garages. Just seeing if I can see any kind of motion. Leclerc, I think, is going to come out again. Hamilton looks stationary, though. So the top 5 feel comfortable with their lap times. Leclerc, Alonso, Gasly, Antonelli, and Hadjar not quite feeling as safe. Bortoleto, Lawson, Albon, Stroll, and Behrman, the 5 drivers that need to improve. Antonelli, it's not an amazing first sector from Antonelli. Hasn't improved on his previous first sector, but has gone quicker than Isaac Hadjar's time. It's not looking amazing. Hello, Kelly. How's it going? Just remembered. No worries. Lance Stroll is improving through the first and second sectors. Antonelli's middle sector is a little bit better. Not looking amazing for him, though. Only 9th fastest at the moment, and people are improving. Lance Stroll can only go 12th fastest. So that's going to be Lance Stroll out of the running. He's going to be in that bottom 5. Kimi Antonelli does improve, but it's only up to 8th fastest for Kimi Antonelli at 112.5. Gasly and Hadjar are both out on flying laps, though. Alex Albon's just coming around the final corner in his Williams car. Can he get a Williams up into the top 10? Has been a pretty much guaranteed points. Alex Albon this season has done very well throughout the year so far, and it is 10th fastest for Alex Albon. But Bortoleto is coming around the final corner. Oh, can only go 11th. The Brazilian is going to be out in 11th place. Here comes Isaac Hadjar, who has turned up this season and really performed exceptionally well as Isaac Hadjar. Coming around turn 14. Can he get himself into the top 10 again? Yes, he can. It is sublime from Isaac Hadjar. 6th fastest of anybody. Alex Albon down into the bottom 5. Lawson and Behrman, the only 2 yet to finish. Here comes Liam Lawson. Can he put Gasly out of it? No. Lawson, a 10th and a half, a little bit off the pace. That means Ollie Behrman is the last man to go for it. Ollie Behrman, 15th fastest at the moment, and is 4 tenths down on Pierre Gasly's time. And I think he's already given up on that lap. He is not going insanely fast at all, is Ollie Behrman, although he's still going for it. Just didn't feel like a very fast final sector, and isn't a very fast final sector from Ollie Behrman. I thought he'd half given up, to be honest, but there we are. He did come across the line. It was 15th fastest for Ollie Behrman, and the slowest of the drivers in this Q2 session. Albon, Bortoleto, Lawson, Stroll, and Behrman, the 5 drivers that will join Hülkenberg, Ocon, Sainz, Colapinto, and Tsunoda in the garage as they lock themselves in to their qualifying positions for tomorrow. And that does mean our top 10 shootout is just around the corner. Piastri, Norris, Verstappen, Russell, Hamilton, Hadjar, Leclerc, Alonso, Antonelli, and Gasly will be the 10 drivers to battle it out for pole position. It is looking very likely it's going to be a McLaren 1-2 from all of the free practice sessions so far. Ooh, and Alex Albon getting a little bit frustrated with the Hasses in that final sector. I think that was Ollie Behrman possibly. Well, it had to be Ollie Behrman in that final sector. Getting a little bit frustrated, and He was only 0.03 of a second off of getting through to Q3 was Alex Albon. So he will have points on his mind for tomorrow. But the Williams car, I mean, they've said all weekend, not really having the best of times at the moment. This Spanish track does not suit the Williams' driving style in the way that they would want it to. Williams returning to 2024 ways. Don't think it's quite that bad. I think it's just a bad track for them this weekend. Albon, though, only 11th fastest. Isn't too far off those point scoring places. And Bortoleto, Lawson, Stroll, and Behrman drop out. So we have got both of the Hasses, both of the Stake Saubers, and both of the Williamses out. Does mean we do indeed have 7 different constructors into Q3, which is just exactly what you want to see, isn't it? We like to see the competitiveness of the Formula One grid this season. A 10th of a second can be a massive difference between where you qualify. And there we are. Piastri and Norris, both of the McLarens through. One of the Red Bulls in Verstappen. Both of the Mercedes, both of the Ferraris, as you'd kind of expect. But it is Hadjar, Alonso, and Gasly all in the mix for that top 10 as well. If I had to put money on it now, I'd say Piastri and Norris look pretty much set for a top 2. Verstappen, Russell, I could imagine being that second row as well. Hadjar, though, is in the mix with the Ferraris there. What can he do? And can Antonelli put together a full lap? Antonelli's had little flashes. He's had fastest sectors here and there, but just hasn't been able to put together a whole 3 sectors and a whole full lap. He had flower damage. Pretty close. Yeah, Yuki Tsunoda suspected floor damage, although I would like to look into that a little bit after qualifying is done, and I'll report back tomorrow as to what happened there with Tsunoda. Surely can't have been just the slowest car on pace. There must have been some kind of problem. And Behrman on the radio was on the used tyre, of course, and said it himself. Couldn't quite get it there. Gabriel Bortoleto also thanks the team around him. Best qualifying so far. 12th place for him. Couple of places off the points. Not too bad a start to the weekend, considering, as I say, Stake Sauber no longer going to be a team next year. Bortoleto. Would be a shame if Bortoleto doesn't get some points at some race this season. Maybe this will be the first one. What if Alonso got an engine blow up again in the race? I think he should just give up on the season, to be honest. Absolutely insane that Fernando Alonso still hasn't got any points on the board so far this season. But that's just the way it's kind of played out for Fernando. As he said himself in Monaco, he is the unluckiest driver in Formula One by a long, long way. Tonight, there is the final of the UEFA Champions League. Very true. I will be watching it. PSG versus Inter Milan. Let's have a little look at this Kimi Antonelli here. Oh, actually, I don't know whether there's a little bit of dirty air from the Haas or possibly just a little bit of a twitch inside of that Mercedes. But yeah, just now you can understand where Kimi Antonelli lost that time in the first sector, because those first couple of corners, the car just did not want to follow the line that Kimi Antonelli wanted it to. Big snap, and he's still really sort of wrestling with that wheel back and forth. Smooth is quick when it comes to Formula One. And that's not the smoothest lap at all from Kimi Antonelli there. Two McLarens, a Red Bull. Here we go. Who is going to take it then? Will it be Piastri? Will it be Norris? It's going to be close. Love a little battle between these two, though. Piastri, thousandths of a second quicker than his teammate. Oscar Piastri in the garage. There's Lando Norris's mother, also in the garage as well. Oh, thank you so much for the super chat, man. Piastri's your pick for pole. Can't put money against Max. I think Max is just that little bit too far off it. Well, I've said this before, haven't I? I said this before about Max, and then he's been able to deliver it, but just seems that little bit too far off of it for my liking, Max Verstappen, at this point when it came to the end of Q2. But as I say, if there's anyone who's going to be able to do it, it's probably Max Verstappen, isn't it? He just is able to deliver when he needs to. Oscar Piastri deciding that he wants to be first out on the track. Same with Max Verstappen. He comes out as well. As the track will be cooled down, we could see a possible one stop for tomorrow. I really hope not. Should hopefully be a two stop. Just because Spain is generally pretty heavy on the tyres. Max Verstappen is fourth in the queue then as we watch him come out. What happened to Yuki? Possible damage to the floor of the Red Bull. So let's not be too hasty in sort of saying Yuki Tsunoda's an absolute flop so far this weekend yet. We'll have to wait and see. Hamilton is out on track as well. 10 minutes to go in this session then. And soft tyres are the play. It's how many sets of softs have you got left? Piastri should have a couple of sets in hand. Lando Norris 2 after only going out for one flying lap in that second qualifying session. There's only there's a few drivers who have only got one set left though. Little bit of a mix. Gasly on a set of used soft compound tyres. Charles Leclerc with a set of used tyres on as well, because I think the Ferrari only has one set of tyres left. Piastri, let's see what he can do then. He's on a flying lap. His teammate Lando Norris is ahead of him. So it's Piastri, Antonelli, Russell, Verstappen, our first three drivers that we'll get to set lap times here. Lando Norris actually ahead of his teammate. Is he going to give his teammate a hand in any way? Or is this a little bit of getting in the way? Piastri so clean through that final sec there, even after dealing with Lando Norris just to get out of the way. Piastri then slows down as his teammate comes past. Piastri then sets the target at 111.8. That is a stunning lap from Piastri. Goodness me. Antonelli a second slower than Oscar Piastri. Here comes George Russell. He's at least only a couple attempts off of it. A 112 dead from George Russell. Max Verstappen then 112.2 from from Verstappen. He goes third fastest. Lando Norris has gone quickest of anybody through the first sector, though. Purple in the first sector from Lando Norris, and it is a good first sector, actually, a 21.3 from Lando Norris. He's going to be right up there with his teammate. It's going to be very tight indeed between the two. He is 1,000th of a second up on Oscar Piastri through the middle part of the lap. This is going to be so tight between the two. Lando Norris coming around the final couple of corners. Is he going to be able to get that better final sector than his teammate? Yes! By 17 thousandths of a second. Goodness me. That is a tight battle for pole position that we have got. 17 thousandths of a second. And it was 16 thousandths of a second quicker in that final sector was the difference between the two. My goodness me. Lando Norris edging out his teammate. Max Verstappen, fourth fastest at the moment. Russell. And George Russell saying he thinks the team were a little bit too conservative when it came to maybe his setup or the tyres that they went for. 0.2 of a second he's not happy about. Charles Leclerc, fourth fastest at the moment. Charles Leclerc getting ahead of Verstappen. Hamilton slotted into 6th place in the other Ferrari, but is 0.3 off of his teammate. Antonelli, 7th fastest. Gasly, 8th fastest. Alonso and Hadjar are the other two. Alonso and Hadjar. Oh, actually, Alonso on an outlap. Hadjar still yet to come out, but only one set of soft compound tyres for either of them. So it's going to be one and done for Fernando Alonso. He's going to go out whilst the track is nice and clear. And Oscar Piastri realising that Lando Norris was just behind him on the straight, getting a little bit of a tow. Not a lot of a tow, but a little bit of a tow nonetheless from his teammate. Just helps him out that little bit in the first sector. And Oscar realises that that was a little bit cheeky from his teammate. Going to play F1 24 tomorrow. I started playing F1 25 the other day. Got sent it. It's pretty good. I think once I get all sorted, I will be playing a little bit more of F1 25 on the channel because I am really enjoying it. I like the changes that they have made to the My Team. Very much enjoying My Team this season. Fernando Alonso, though. Let's keep an eye on Fernando Alonso's sector timings. 21.6 through that first part of the lap for Fernando Alonso. Again, he's kind of really battling with Gasly and Hadjar here. It's who's likely to be the 8th fastest driver. Maybe you can pick off a Kimi Antonelli, who was 0.4 of a second off Lewis Hamilton. So Kimi Antonelli, not an impossible task to catch up to him in this qualifying session, but we'll have to wait and see. Alonso, a couple of tenths, well, quite a few tenths down on Lando Norris. He comes through that middle part of the lap, but again, we're looking at whether Fernando Alonso can really get ahead of Antonelli and Gasly here before they come out for another flying lap. Fernando Alonso, oh, it's a very tidy lap from Fernando Alonso indeed. Final sector was very nice from Fernando. And Alonso, 5th fastest overall, 4.5 of a second off Lando Norris. But that final sector really helped out Fernando Alonso there. Slots him ahead of Verstappen and Hamilton for now. You'd assume those two are going to improve. Antonelli, though, has got a long way to make up to get ahead of Fernando Alonso there. Gasly and Hadjar is going to come out first of the bunch. So Hadjar now making his way out of it. Charles Leclerc is out of the car. I think Charles Leclerc, having used up his fresh set of soft compound tyres, has decided to leave it there. There's not a chance of him improving. Fernando Alonso already waving to the crowd. Very happy indeed is Fernando Alonso. Should be really, really solid middle sector and a very, very good final sector from Fernando Alonso. Has put him properly in the mix for starting, well, third row at the moment. If nobody else behind him can improve, I think he might just end up on the fourth row of the grid. Imagine Verstappen, Hamilton, Antonelli, at least a couple of those drivers will be able to improve pretty substantially. Lando Norris is now out first. Oscar Piastri behind him. Hadjar is the leader of these runners, though. Hadjar yet to set a lap time. Is just coming towards turn 10. Gasly's out again. This time on a fresh set of soft compound tyres. Norris on some fresh softs. Piastri on some fresh softs. Antonelli, I don't know if Antonelli does have a set of softs. I think he might have used it. Yeah, Antonelli on a used set of tyres. Antonelli with no fresh soft compound tyres left. Of course, don't really need them for the race tomorrow. You're assuming that you're probably going to run just the medium and hard compounds for the race running. Here we are then. Lando Norris just coming through turn 10, and it's going to heat up for the final part of qualifying just about now. Fernando Alonso into the pits. Gets to celebrate with his team. Very happy with that lap indeed. And the rest of the track is left to everybody else. I think Hadjar is going to place 8. Hadjar, 21.5 for that first sector is better than Fernando Alonso's first sector from Isaac Hadjar. So looking good for the RB so far. Just whether he's got enough tyres to finish the rest of the lap as strongly as Fernando Alonso did. Lando Norris has started his final flying lap of the session, and so has Oscar Piastri. Let's keep an eye on their lap times. Lando Norris improves his first sector time by 1/10 of a second. Can Piastri rebuttal that from his teammate? Yes, Piastri finds another 1/10 of a second. This is going to be tight, ladies and gentlemen. This is going to be so intense between the two McLarens. Here comes Lando Norris round turn 9, possibly the trickiest corner on the track. Very easy to just take a little bit too much speed into turn 9, but Norris is clean through turn 10 as well. It's not an incredible middle sector from Lando Norris. Has to be said, lost a little bit of time compared to his previous middle sector time, whereas Piastri hasn't. Piastri continues to improve. Is fastest in the middle sector from Oscar Piastri as well. Lando Norris does improve his time, but it's only by 0.06 of a second. Oscar is looking insanely good for a pole position here. Here comes Oscar Piastri round the final corner, and it is 0.2 of a second quicker than his teammate. Oscar Piastri, take a bow. Here comes Kimi Antonelli to go fourth fastest. He puts both of the Mercedes cars on the second row of the grid. Charles Leclerc, remember, in the pits. Fernando Alonso as well can't improve. Gasly, I think, has completed his lap. So Gasly is best of the rest. Here come Verstappen and Hamilton. Hamilton goes third fastest in the Ferrari. So Lewis Hamilton displaces both of the Mercedes cars in front of him. And Max Verstappen then displaces the whole lot. Puts himself third on the grid, because of course he does. It's Max Verstappen we're talking about. Can George Russell do it? No. George Russell, fourth fastest, not quite. Oh, he matches Max Verstappen's time exactly. Oh my goodness me. George Russell, exactly the same lap time as Max Verstappen. So they're going to start on the second row of the grid, side by side. Lewis Hamilton goes fifth fastest. Antonelli, his replacement, will start beside him in 6th. Charles Leclerc couldn't improve, had that one set of soft compound tyres. He's 7th fastest in that top 7. Pierre Gasly, best of the rest. Hadjar just behind him. Fernando Alonso. Felt like a really good lap time from Fernando Alonso there, but everybody just able to improve right at the end of the session. Was able to jump up those few tenths needed. It's going to be tight tomorrow, isn't it? It's going to be very tight indeed between Piastri and Norris. They're going to go down towards turn 1 side by side. We've seen, actually, starting P1 is not always the best of places to start when it comes to the Spanish Grand Prix. But we'll have to wait and see. Max Verstappen, George Russell behind in 3rd and 4th place. Hamilton and Kimi Antonelli behind in 5th and 6th. Leclerc and Gasly will start side by side. The two friends will be 7th and 8th on the 4th row of the grid. And Isaac Hadjar, as well as Fernando Alonso, will start inside of the point scoring places in 9th and 10th. Albon, Bortoletto, Lawson, Stroll, and Behrman, the 5 drivers that we lost in Q2. And then Hulkenberg, Ocon, Sainz, Colapinto, and Tsunoda, the 5 drivers not good enough to make it out of Q1. Keep you updated on whether or not there was a little bit of floor damage to Yuki Tsunoda's car. Franco Colapinto also with an issue. Whether or not his car will be able to start from the grid or maybe from the pit lane tomorrow, we'll have to wait and see. But for now, we just have to celebrate how insanely quick Oscar Piastri was at the final part of that session. A 1:11.546. Take a bow. Oscar Piastri, your current championship leader, is also your pole position starter for the Spanish Grand Prix. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you could leave a like, subscribe, all of that good stuff, that'd be massively helpful. And I will see you tomorrow as we are live once again for the Spanish Grand Prix.